Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Ryan Suhr, along with my co-host Don Helbig. Don, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Super excited. The NFL season kicks off this week. Thursday night football starts with the Kansas City Chiefs against the Detroit Lions. I'm going with the Lions in that one.
Mm,
I think they're going to have a really good year. You got the Bengals opening up Sunday in Cleveland, so really excited about that. NHL training camps will be opening in a couple of weeks, and around the country, all the Halloween events start at the amusement and theme parks.
yeah, that's true. There's a lot of things going around there. A lot of parks have made their announcements recently for the Halloween stuff. Along with, it seems like this is the season though. A couple weeks ago seemed to be new ride season, and now we've got the Halloween season, which is something you can look forward to like a little bit closer. It's not next year; it's this year. Um,
Right.
so speaking of a park that has a really good Halloween event, I heard you visited a nice park this weekend.
I did. Kennywood, just outside of Pittsburgh. It had been a minute since I had been there. So it was 1982 was my previous visit there. Uh, Not much changed. I mean, the park opened in 1898. I really love the old school charm that the park has. It has three fantastic wooden roller coasters, all American Coaster Enthusiast landmark coasters. You have the Thunderbolt, one of my favorite roller coasters of all time. You have the Racer, and you have Jackrabbit. Jackrabbit ride with that double dip, just so much fun. Got to ride some rides that I had never ridden before there that had come in since my last visit, but was there for 2 days over Labor Day weekend. Just had a great time. Rekindled a lot of memories really quick when I walked in, but it also brought back for me. I mentioned the word charm. Uh, my first amusement park experience was Cincinnati's Coney Island. So a lot of Kennywood, things that they have there kind of reminded me of what Coney Island was. But no, it was a good couple of days. And you talked about their Halloween event, which starts later this month. I hear that's really well done. They had some of the decor that they had started to bring out there. They also have a great Christmas event. So I hope to be able to get back to experience those events, if not this year, for sure next year.
So, what was your favorite ride there?
Thunderbolt, without question. It's just one of the best wooden roller coasters I've ever ridden. It's in the argument for number one. I've got the Voyage on that list. I've got the Beast, on that list. Um, so there's a lot of things that I really like about it, and it pushes for number one.
Yeah, total classic. I mean, I haven't been to Kennywood since 2007, and that most certainly has to change. But I distinctly remember liking Noah's Ark, which is a PTC dark ride. Only one of two in existence, I think. I think the other one's in England, but it's not operational. It's just for show. Their wooden coasters are fantastic. They've got a Mobius racing coaster, which is really, really cool. And even their more modern ones, like Exterminator. It's a indoor spinning ride, which is themed to like an exterminator. That was actually themed by our friend Rick Bastrop by his book. Previous episode, two episodes ago, I think he was on. No, it was last week's episode. Sorry. Anyway, but he did the thematic elements of that. So yeah, I mean, Kennywood's a fantastic park, and I feel like it's completely undercredited when it comes to its place amongst some of the greats. It kind of has Dollywood vibes to it in a lot of ways, where it's not just
It
about
does.
the rides; it's about yeah, the other things that you can do there, and you can enjoy the food and the other attractions. And you're right. I mean, it does have a fantastic amount of charm. So I'm glad you got to do
It
that.
does.
But
Have to mention too, Phantom's Revenge.
hmm,
So my first time on that, I thought that was another amazing, coaster that they have there. Uh, some great airtime on it. There's the where it goes down this one drop and it cuts under Thunderbolt. So that head chopper, I wasn't expecting that. So it was just a great ride. You get off the ride, you want to get right back on and do it again. Little odd with the restraint system and that kind of thing, how it is, but just a great ride. Had a great time. Can't wait to get back again.
yeah, the thing I always liked about Phantom's Revenge is how it's technically a hyper coaster, but that's because of the second hill, not the first hill, as traditional with these things. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, and then after you got back, so you and I had a company outing. last night we went to Cincinnati Reds game, which was a lot of fun. Um, and one of us got to take home a bit of a souvenir. I'd like to say that I caught a foul ball for those of you that are, listening to the audio version. I didn't really catch it; it more caught me. But yeah, it's funny because you and I we used to go to Reds games relatively often, and then the last couple of years it's only been once or twice a year. And just in the times that we've gone, you got a foul ball and I've gotten a foul ball. You know,
Yeah, mine left a mark on my head though. Remember, I cut my
I do
forehead
remember that. You're.
reaching for the ball there, but yours was off the bat of T.J.
Mm-hmm.
Friedel,
Thanks, TJ.
and yeah, kind of went a couple rows right behind us, ricocheted off an empty seat, came back over our shoulders, went off the head of the woman sitting in front of us, hit my foot, and rolled over to you. So all you had to do was reach down and pick it up.
I mean, it's kind of like winning at Wheel of Fortune. It's like, I mean, I didn't land on bankrupt, but I did spin the wheel. You know,
That's right.
awesome.
But nice souvenir for you to
Yeah,
have.
yeah. It's I've caught game like at little minor league games and stuff. I've caught balls or uh been the person that received the ball, shall we say? But never at a major league game. So this is something I'll always remember. So that's pretty cool. You know. Um, but yeah. So enough about baseball because we're talking about theme parks here. Oh, by the way, subscribe on all your favorite podcast apps. Look for us on YouTube by searching for the Attractions Group podcast, and follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. It's up in the upper right hand corner from what you can see now because we got new graphics. But what are we going to talk about today, Don?
Well, Ryan, last week was an exciting one for theme park fans with Six Flags unveiling thrilling new rides and experiences, including 3 roller coasters, family rides, water attractions, and an upscale glamping experience in 2024. So let's delve into the highlights. Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I guess first we're going to go to Six Flags Over Texas. The world's first log flume now becomes one of the world's longest log flumes in 2024. The new El Rio Lento will feature an all new lift hill and 2 big drops, including a giant steep nosedive to add to the fun. It's a family fun ride for all thrill seekers of all ages. That seems pretty cool. I mean, log flumes, it's funny because you don't really see a whole lot of, marketing the log flumes. It's always like, the log flumes are already there. So to see one that actually is having, because we've seen them retheme before, but to see one that's actually having construction done and like new things done to it, it's kind of a cool look, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's great to see that they're extending this ride rather than just tearing it down and putting something else in that spot. So I've been on that one before. It's a fantastic log flume. So obviously I'm going to look forward to riding it in the future with these changes.
Yeah, same here. I think that it looks really cool. I think log flumes are way more fun than people give them credit for. I think a lot of people don't ride them because they don't want to get wet. I'm like one of those people. So I wish there was a log flume in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina that I rode. That was this. It had a weird bunny hop after the hill. It was the strangest thing ever. But that was like the perfect log flume because you got sprinkled but not soaked. And that's like what I'm looking for. I want to get kind of wet but not really wet. So come on, science. We should make that log flume so I can ride it kind of often. Where are we heading to next, Don?
Well, we'll stay in the state of Texas. We've got Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and an expansion of the DC Universe land will include Cyber Revolution. It's creating a visually stunning and airtime filled ride of 4 individual arms rotating in a fast, intermeshing orbits. They got Shazam, Tower of Eternity, rotating family drop tower, and Metropolis Transit Authority. Now, this will allow 16 passengers to relax and enjoy an aerial view 17 feet above DC Universe aboard 2 Art Deco covered monorail style trains. So, very excited about this. It's more than one thing, so I like that they're adding more than just one attraction there. And our good friend Jeffrey Siebert is there. So Ryan, we're going to have to go out and visit him and check out this new attraction.
Yeah, I mean, Fiesta Texas is definitely way high on my bucket list. I have not been there yet, but they've got that single rail Raptor and some fantastic an RMC and they're inside the quarry. I just think I
Or
think
yeah,
that's just so neat. And to be adding three attractions, especially with none of them
yeah.
being like throwaway attractions, is really cool. And it just shows that Jeffrey kind of has his finger on the pulse of what gets people's attention and what are crowd pleasers and what isn't. And he seems like he hits home runs every time he walks up to the plate. And the
Visually, it looks great too from the rendering that I've
yeah.
seen. It's going to be a great
Well, I
visual.
mean, and look at their history and stuff. Like, in the past 10 years or so, and less time than that, really, there's been a lot of things where, hey, in addition to we're getting a new ride next year, we're also retheming this ride and stuff like that. Stuff that just like, it's marketable, but it also is just better for the park. It makes a better product for the park. So good on Jeff. Very, very happy for him. From all accounts I've heard, he's doing a fantastic job down there, and I would expect no less out of him. All right. Where are we going to next? Oh, Six Flags Great Adventure. Okay, so Six Flags Great Adventure, to celebrate its 50th year, the park will introduce the first super boomerang coaster to open in North America. The Flash, vertical velocity, rushes forwards and backwards at nearly 60 miles per hour through 180-degree twist drops and a zero G roll. In a flash, it changes direction and speeds uh, off again and then backward. Guests can also immerse themselves in an authentic African lodge experience with the new Savannah Sunset Resort and Spa. Set within the expansive 350-acre Wild Safari Park, guests will enjoy ultra luxurious glamping tents, scenic vistas, spa services, and VIP dining, all creating an unforgettable safari getaway. So, Don, that is another two punch. So you've got a new ride. The new ride, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is that's a Vekoma Super Boomerang, like one of the new Vekomas. So 2024 is the year of Vekoma in the United States for those of you listening internationally. But so the glamping experience that cost as much as the coaster. I'm willing to say. I mean
Oh yeah.
that's a lot of infrastructure and stuff too. But let's talk about the coaster because that's what people probably care about the most. Um, the Vekoma Super Boomerangs are very interesting because the boomerang of the past from 20 years ago is not the same product that they're offering now. It's a far more complex system of, twists and turns and loops and stuff like that. It's not just down, cobra roll, flip, and then back down around. Um, the only concern I would have with something like this is the throughput, the capacity. Um, and I know that, for example, just using the local example, in 1999, when Kings Island brought in their Vekoma and Vertigo, they also added Drop Tower the same year, very close to it, which was probably having capacity in mind. The glamping thing won't help with that, but. What are your thoughts with that? I mean, in your experience with the discussions, as far as we're bringing in a new attraction, it's a major attraction. It only runs one train. Like, what how do they counter something like that?
Well, I mean, there's a number of attractions out there that aren't boomerangs that are one train operations. So, to me, it falls in line with that. The thing about a ride like this, it's not the longest ride in the world. So the train is back in the station. The riders are exiting. The next group's getting ready to board pretty quickly. So, it works. It works just because of how short the ride is and just how quick you can get guests on and off.
Yeah, and I imagine that too. They have the family boomerangs now, which probably have the same ride time as a lot of kids' rides. Um, and with their newer vehicles, they're better for loading and unloading. I mean, we talked about. I don't know if it's the same vehicles necessarily as Big Bear Mountain, but Big Bear Mountain was very easy to climb into and stuff. I've noticed that with a lot of coasters, like from the late '90s, for example, it's difficult to get in. It's difficult to pull the lap bar down. It's difficult to latch the seatbelt. If they don't have that problem, then they're not going to have, you know, terrible issues like that. But this is another one I'm excited for. I do like boomerangs. I like the old ones, and the new ones I've not been on yet, but I think it's super exciting. I just think it looks really neat, and it's going to be a fantastic addition to that park.
It will. So moving on to St. Louis, the Six Flags Park there. is going to introduce a fun attraction. It's the Joker Carnival of Chaos. Now, this stands at a staggering record height of 17 stories tall. It whips back and forth as the giant disc spins, gets higher and higher while reaching speeds up to 75 miles per hour. Now, Ryan, this sounds intense.
Yeah, 75 miles an hour. Uh, so it whips. So it's a giant disc ride, 75 miles an hour for a giant disc ride. I think the fastest one I've been on is like 60.
Yes,
17
yeah, right
stories
around that
tall.
range for me too. But yeah, it's and it again, when you look at the rendering, it looks great.
It does, and this is probably the Zamperla model. But the cool part is they have all like the carnival lights on them and stuff, so they can kind of do patterns and stuff like that, and light them up different colors. I think that's really cool. I think the rides are visually very very good, um, and they clearly work because they keep on adding them. You know, they're crowd pleasers, and I guess the downtime isn't substantial or anything like that because Six Flags basically you get a card these rides to every one of their properties so far. And I mean, maybe there's a couple gaps in there, but it seems like it's spreading out. But what a crowd pleaser! It's visual, 17 stories tall, 75 miles an hour. It's got the lights and stuff. So big win for them. I mean, when was the last time St. Louis had a major installation? Do you know if
Well,
they?
yeah, I was just going to mention that it's it's one of those parks that you hear the Six Flags fans in St. Louis often saying, "What about us?" when they see these other attractions going, to the Great Adventure and the Six Flags Great America in Chicago and Six Flags over Texas, out in Magic Mountain out in California. So it's great to see that they're getting something. I call it major.
I would call it major as well. Yeah, I think that there's a huge appreciation for something like this, and I think that it'll be a big win. It'll bring a lot of interest to them. So good on them. Uh,
It's to that park, Ryan. If you've not been there before, I'd recommend going. They do have a classic wooden roller coaster that I love. It opened, right after the racer did in the 70s. I hear it's still running great. So it is on my bucket list next summer to visit Six Flags St. Louis.
yeah, I have not been there, and I look forward to making that trip. That seems like a fun park to go to, and it's in the vicinity of a lot of other parks too. If you're going to be in that part of the country as well. Okay, so let's see here. The next one up, where were we? St. Louis before. So
Hmm.
Six Flags Great America. Six Flags Great America. Sky Striker is a giant pendulum attraction. There we go again. That sends riders at a breathtaking journey to extreme heights. A massive 17-story pendulum that glides effortlessly back and forth while rotating clockwise, reaching speeds of nearly 75 miles an hour, delivering a heart-pounding experience of weightlessness at an astounding 172 feet. So, this has got the identical statistics to the other one, I'm guessing. But I mean, everything we said rings true. Fantastic ride. I'm surprised this park didn't already have one, to be honest with you. But I love these pendulum rides. I love the Hoos ones, the Zamperla ones. There's the one that goes upside down at Kentucky Kingdom I've been on. That one's okay. But I don't. These are just swinging pendulums. I don't think they invert. But you don't get the weightlessness thing when it goes around a whole 360.
Yeah, it's going to be a great addition, to complement their ride lineup well. Uh, yeah, so looking forward to this one too.
Yeah, completely agree. Where are we heading to next, Don?
We're heading to Georgia, Six Flags over Georgia, in fact, and it's the first of its kind Ultra Surf coaster that they're getting. It's bringing a totally new coaster experience to the park with a track that launches riders forward and backward, surfing at 60 miles per hour through a refreshing splash pool. Now, it's going to be good when you're based in Hotlanta. It's a free spinning seats that will ensure that no two rides are alike. So I really like that aspect of it. While the name of this thriller is still to be determined, Six Flags Over Georgia fanatics will be invited to take part in the selection of the coaster's official name. You're going to need to follow the park's social media for details. But I like, too, that they're allowing their guests, their biggest fans, to submit their ideas for the name. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because we it's contrary to what we've discussed in the past, where you cannot announce an attraction without a name because you have to have a backstory. But at the same time, it's also creating the backstory. You, the fans, you guys write this, you know? So I think that's really neat. The ride itself, you want to talk about visual. The animation looks like it's got like water plumes and stuff like that. I think it looks really neat. It reminds me of a Zamperla Disco, but to like the nth degree, you know? So it's going to be pretty extreme.
You gonna submit a name?
If I think of a good one, I mean, I was trying to think of when you were reading that, I was trying to think of what I would submit, but I I don't know. Maybe you could get everyone to submit Air Force One and see if they actually go with it.
No, I just like it's like I mean, it's number one, it sounds fun and thrilling, but I like the fact that they're involving their their guests and letting them be part of the naming convention.
Yeah, and I guess with a ride like this, you don't have your backstory and stuff like that. You don't have the abandoned lumber mill or whatever direction you're going. This is surfing themed. Why don't you guys tell us a story this time? Which I think is kind of cool. All right, where are we heading to? Oh, there's got to be a typo here because it says that Six Flags Great Escape is getting a coaster. Or can we?
That's that was shocking.
Yeah, yeah, they haven't, and they announced the closure of their their trackless coaster. I want to say it's a pipeline coaster. I know that toboggan coaster. That's what it is.
Hmm.
But here's a full description that we have for it. It's Six Flags Great Escape. The Bobcat wooden coaster roars at nearly 40 miles an hour with a family-friendly, modernized coaster train providing a comfortable ride experience with light turns, hills, and curves. Thrill seekers crave. Designed by our friends at the Gravity Group. Well, the Gravity Group really got that niche for those family coasters. This reminds me a lot of both Oscar's Wacky Taxi is one, and Kentucky Flyer at Kentucky Kingdom's another one. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. What a great addition, and hopefully bringing in a coaster because this for a big park. If this were a Six Flags New Jersey or something, this wouldn't be a huge expenditure year. For this park, this is probably the biggest expenditure they've had in decades. I just hope that it brings in the attention and uh, the turnstile clicks that's necessary for them to continue to do this because I know the people up there have wanted something bigger and better for a long time.
Yeah, and it'll be a nice complement to their other wooden coaster that they have there, the Comet. That's a fantastic ride. So looking forward to this one. It's much needed for that park to give it some love. And if you live in that part of New York, the Adirondacks area, I think this is going to be a home run for them.
I completely agree. And how can it not be? Especially when the reputation gets out about how smooth and comfortable it is. I think people are really going to enjoy that.
Well, Ryan, for thrill seekers like us, 2024 cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. It's this Six Flags stuff is fascinating because um, they had announced that they were gonna do more on the marketing side of their current attractions and not add as many attractions, but they've pivoted on that. And that was always up for debate. And enthusiasts, being the armchair quarterbacks that we are, said that's so stupid because they need to add new stuff. And I can see why, from a business, putting on my suit and tie that I never wear unless I'm going to court or I have a funeral. I can see why that would be something that executives would think. We've got $250 million worth of hardware in our park. Do we need to add 30 million every year? But the fact of the matter is, you always have to be doing something to generate interest. And you sometimes set the bar at a certain level. And when you've got little parks like a Michigan's Adventure, where they don't really add a lot of roller coasters and stuff, but their big announcement last year was that they're adding tricks and treats this year, which I think is a fantastic addition. That's going to draw the attention that's necessary for a park of that size. But when you come to your New Jerseys and your Chicagos and markets like that, it's definitely going to be in the proper vein to Add the hardware. I mean, you just got to do it sometimes, and this is evidence that that's the direction they decided to go, and hopefully they'll have a really strong year as a result of it. Which of these attractions are you looking forward to most?
There's well, I'm going to go with two parks here. Gaming, Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and what they're doing. So very, much looking forward to that. And being a wood coaster fan, I'm looking at Six Flags Great Escape. Being a big fan of what the Gravity Group does. I know it's going to be an amazing ride. So those would be the two that stand out, immediately for me in terms of what has me the most excited. What about you, Ryan?
So the Ultra Surf Coaster at Six Flags Over Georgia, like that's got my interest. I think that would be a really fun experience. None of these are duds. All of these are interesting and they're worthy of discussion. And um, both of those Zamperla pendulums are look really cool. The Bobcat at Six Flags Great Escape definitely draws my interest. And you mentioned like the Fiesta Texas stuff. I mean, Fiesta Texas is kind of on their own level when it comes to Six Flags or really any chain of parks, and their additions are going to be really cool and really interesting, and it'll be really cool to see how those turn out. But yeah, I mean, I think this is such a fantastic year. If you could only pick one, though, if you're going to visit one park, would you get the credit? Would you get the Bobcat credit?
If I only pick one, I think I'm gonna. It's a tough one, but I'm gonna go with Fiesta Texas, and just because there's multiple things that they're doing there, and to see the different things, and there's also some other attractions that they've added, recent years that I have not been on. So I would lean toward them.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose a park to go to, it would probably be Fiesta Texas. But if it was, all of these were sitting out in a field, and I had to choose one to ride, like before they're set out for delivery, they're all set up in a parking lot. Um, I would say the Ultra Surf Coaster. That's the one that intrigues me the most. I'm
Hmm.
very curious as to what the sensation is going to be like riding that thing.
Now, for me though, I do feel that next summer I'm going to do a lot of traveling, and I do feel that if I can't hit every one of these, I'm going to hit most of these next summer.
Oh, that would be a heck of a summer to have. I mean, uh, when they're only adding stuff to three parks, that's easy. But in this case, it's a big swath of them. There's some that are glaringly missing, like Six Flags Magic Mountain isn't on this list. Discovery Kingdom's not on this list, but this is over
And
half.
that's not to say they're not going to have new things next year. These were just the ones that we called out to highlight on the most, that received the most attention following the announcements.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And plus, even if something isn't on this list, it's quite possible that they would make their because I believe like Fiesta Texas actually announced this stuff a few days before this big swath announcement. Um, we'll have to do an episode one day on your thoughts on how Six Flags kind of they don't really do this anymore because this is not exactly what they did. But remember, for years they would say like, "Oh, this is what's coming to every Six Flags park." I always thought that was stupid because, and it's my opinion because I think every park should have their moment and they should be able to express to the public what they're doing and what they should be excited for and why they should buy season passes and so on. It also didn't help that like three of the rides on the list were clones often. So, when you're announcing, I mean, we can use the pendulum ride as an example, actually, because this was during the time when they were doing installing a lot of those. When it's like, oh, Six Flags over Georgia is getting a giant pendulum, and you're going to swing really high in the air, and then Six Flags Discovery Kingdom's getting a water park expansion, and then Six Flags Magic Mountain. Remember that pendulum? We're doing that here too.
Yeah, they seemed, this year, just looking at all the parks' social media posts, they were all able to kind of make it their own story.
Yeah,
And, I thought they all did a fantastic job of engaging their fans and, getting the conversation going.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, and some of it is like a sentiment thing for me. Like I'm not necessarily arguing their business plan because I don't know what they have in mind or what they had in mind. Because again, Yeah, you're right. It is far more personalized this year. So it seems like each park was able to make their announcement. This is the way that I always thought it should be. Because if they wanted to make an announcement and it was more for the on the investor side of we're doing 100 million in capital expenditures or something, they could do that, but it would be let each park make their announcement and then drop a presser saying these are coming to all the parks for a total of this amount and this is why we love our guests and this is why we're going to be successful. But it seems like it's a little bit more in line with that now than it was 5 or 6 years ago when they would drop a video to enthusiast sites saying like, oh, now we're heading to Chicago, now we're heading to St. Louis and stuff. I always decided kind of like if I was one of the people working on one of the projects at one of the parks, I'd be like, well, can we make our own announcement? I mean, we've talked several times about the memories we've had, whether for you working in the industry, for me being a spectator of being there when the big announcement was made. I don't think that they always had these moments. Um,
No,
but
no, but Ryan, when you look at what everybody's, Six Flags and the other parks out there, all the different things that they've announced. I have to go back to the 1980s when I've been, this excited about what everybody in the industry is doing next summer and wanting to get out to these parks and experience these new attractions, plus, old time favorites that are at these parks.
I completely agree. I haven't been to a lot of Six Flags park. I've been to a lot of parks, and it just Six Flags just hasn't been it. So I am very eager to make it out to Fiesta, Texas, especially now that they're year round. It's far more
Yeah,
tempting to.
beautiful park. Six Flags over Georgia, beautiful. They had nice landscaping. I liked Six Flags Great Adventure New Jersey. That was a park at night that I really loved, with all the lighting and you had the different attractions, just the way it all looked, stunning. Six Flags St. Louis, a fun park when I went there. So, yeah, I mean, these are all nice parks and it's great to see, all the new attractions that are coming in. And over the past, few years, there's several of them because I have not been able to get out and go to those parks that I'm looking forward to catching up on the ones I've missed that, have come out in the last 5 or 6 years.
I completely agree, and what an exciting year for Six Flags. I really wish them the best because they're doing exactly what people had kind of asked for, and you get what you want. So let's make sure that you're giving them give them the support that they need for doing this. It's a huge pivot from their original business plan. So good on them. I think it'll be good.
All right. Well, Ryan, we have a pinned post on our X, formerly known as Twitter,
Hmm.
where our listeners can submit their theme park questions to us. So each week, we started it last week, but each week on the Attractions Group podcast, we're going to answer a listener's question. And this week's question comes from Thuzy Tony. He's at Old Thuzy. So it's at Old Thuzy. He says, this may go better with Tower Topics, but since you're asking, what type of coaster would you like to see in Vortex former residence at Kings Island?
Hmm. What kind of ride would I like to see?
Well, he says roller
Oh,
coaster.
roller coaster
So
specifically.
yeah. So Old Thuzy, he's banking on roller coaster. But if it was up to us, and it's not, what would you like to see?
I mean, I think first of all, we should make it so it's up to us. Okay, there are two types of rides that I really, really want to see in that spot. I've put a lot of thought into this because, frankly, I have nothing better to do. Um, I think what they're going to do is they're going to put a dive coaster there. I'm going to say that. And the reason why I think that is because I think it's a good spot for it. It's visual. We talked about that earlier. Dive coasters aren't terribly expensive compared to a lot of other B&Ms. They're B&Ms, so they're reliable. You guys know the routine. What would I like to see? Two different things. One, mock extreme spinner. I time traveler, and I've been on the Sand Serpent down at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Fantastic rides. Kings Island does not have a spinning ride like that. Would love to see that there. That would be my number one. The number two would be either I would say if I had to choose, I would say the Intamin version, but like a Maverick style ride where it's if, I know that they're now calling it like a Terra coaster, but low to the ground, turns, stuff like that. Vekoma has their version too, but I feel like Vekoma will be a little bit more dialed back. I would take dialed back in exchange for a really good theme and a really good story, but a coaster like that would be perfect for that spot. You could even do like water and stuff there if you wanted to. What are your thoughts, Don?
Well, ideally, and if, I love Mavericks or something like that, but you need a little over 4,000 feet, of track to work with to make it something that would be on par or maybe even better than Maverick, and that would be hard to do. Um, but I don't think that space as it exists right there would allow you to make one, it's 4,000 something plus feet. So it'd have to be a little bit shorter. And that's why I think two things come to mind: a dive coaster, which would be, 32, 33, 3,400 feet, that would fit perfectly in that space, or something like Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, another coaster, 3,200, 3,250, whatever the distance on that one is, the length of the track there. Something like that would fit in that space. And I think visually, a Copperhead Strike type of coaster would look really good there when you're coming down the Midway and you turn to go toward Rivertown. I think, that would be a nice fit. So either a dive coaster or something like Copperhead Strike. I do think the topography, though, makes it a little bit challenging for a dive coaster and what they historically do with the layouts of those. So I think, Copperhead Strike, it can certainly fit something like that in there. A Maverick, you could fit something like that if you just had a little bit more room to get it over 4,000 feet. But I don't know. And, these are all, you walk by that area and you see the empty field sitting there, and it really, makes you think, all the possibilities that could go in that space. But, we don't know, what's going to go in there, and, what might fit there. And, so who knows? But a great question. We appreciate it. And, if you want to submit your questions, go to our X, formerly known as Twitter, attractions_GRP, and fire your questions, and we'll get to them all eventually.
Yeah. So, okay, let's work with this. So, if they were going to do a dive coaster, to me, I think that the one thing that hasn't really been done on a wide scale for dive coasters is, and I know that Yukon Striker kind of does this, but why don't dive coasters almost always go directly into a tunnel? Yeah, like
Why don't they?
yeah, I feel like they don't often enough. Because wouldn't the perfect visual from the top be that you can just see and it looks like it's like the train wouldn't make
Yeah,
it
this little
through?
hole you're going into. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that would add a lot of thrill to an attraction like that. I'm a big fan of dive coasters. My first one was SheiKra at Busch Gardens, Tampa. That's still probably my favorite dive coaster that I've been on. Um, sometimes when it's the first coaster that you've ridden of that style, you kind of tend to lean toward that because it's your most memorable.
Yeah.
Uh, but I really like that one. I like Valraven at Cedar Point. I think is fantastic. A big part of these dive coasters too is when you get to the top and you kind of hang there for a few seconds, is what you're looking at. When you look out into the distance, and Cedar Point, you look out and you see Lake Erie, and so things like that are important too. When you have a dive coaster, what are you looking at? Which way is it going to leave the station to go up the lift hill and turn to drop? What is the visual? I think that's important too.
Yeah, I think that I was gonna say, you said that was it SheiKra you said was your favorite? So SheiKra is a really good ride, but the exact thing I was gonna bring up is that you get a view of downtown Tampa from there, which is kind of cool. But if we're rating it on that scale, then Valraven is hands down the best dive coaster that I've been on, at least, because that view of Lake Erie is
It's
worth waiting
beautiful,
in line for.
stunning.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, you can see for miles. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, but I like the water element, the splash
Yes.
that Sheik does. So I think that, and it also is a ride that if you're not going to ride it, you can still have fun, getting splashed. You always see the people lined up along the side of the ride there at Busch Gardens, Tampa, when it goes by and they just get splashed with the water. It's almost like a Congo Falls type ride when how they get hit with the water. So that adds an element to it for me as well too, that you don't necessarily have to ride it to have fun, enjoy it. It's a great visual too with photos at that park. So that all those different things combined made it my favorite dive coaster.
Yeah. I like how they asked what we would like in the vortex spot, and We danced around the dive coaster and then we talked all about dive coasters. That's the way we roll. Hey,
Well,
but we're more on
we're
topic
just
than
looking at
most podcasts, all right?
yeah, the topography though. I mean, it's there's a lot more space than you would think to work with there, but just the topography of it and that, you might want something that hugs more low to the ground and takes advantage of the terrain and everything in there. So,
Yeah,
who knows? But a great question. We appreciate it. So definitely, if you have any questions out there about the theme park industry, certainly go to our X, formerly Twitter. It's pinned at the very top, and just post your question. And like I mentioned, we will get to them all eventually.
absolutely. Ooh. So we've been talking about the news of the day, but that's not going to stop us because you know what, Don? It's time for a little segment we like to call the Pick Six. Take it away.
Well, Ryan, I'll start out with the best thing that I heard today, and that is the cat is out of the bag. The iconic Wildcat roller coaster at Lake Compounce Amusement Park in Bristol, Connecticut. It's going to return in 2024. The 96-year-old classic Woody is being retracked with a vertically stacked track thanks to the Gravity Group. As we know, an industry leader in wooden coaster renovations. You can be among the first to experience a smoother ride on this classic. It opened in 1927, which is only 672 years in cat years if you make a visit to the park next summer.
600. How many cat years? 672?
672 in cat years.
Okay. How are you calculating that like dog years? Like 7 years per year?
I don't know. I guess they said a cat has 9 lives, so you go how many years it is times 9. I guess that's how the math worked out there.
Did you run it through the fact checkers? Have we hired fact checkers yet?
I just went to I saw it on their Facebook page today, so I was like, hey, this is something we definitely got to talk about on the Pick Six because, it did not operate this year. I had been on that ride back in 1984 when I visited the park, and a lot of fun out and back. Traditional
Hmm.
Philadelphia Toboggan Company. Built it, so it was my type of wooden coaster. With the out and back, and it was a lot of fun. But through the years, it got a little rougher, and that is a coaster that's almost 100 years old is going to be. But it's just great to hear that. It's getting refurbished. It's going to be there for future generations to enjoy. And you have the Gravity Group working on it, so you have all the confidence in the world. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's easy to put your stamp on of approval for Gravity Group when it comes to these refurbishment projects. I'm still not over the cat year thing because I know that a dog 1 year for a dog is 7 years for no 1 year for a human, 7 years for a dog. But I've never heard that because cats have 9 lives, that 1 year for a cat is 9 years for.
Just roll with it.
Okay, we'll just accept it. We still love you, Lake Compounds. Okay, so speaking of animals, the Haunt the Zoo event will return to Oklahoma City Zoo in Oklahoma for its 40th anniversary season. Um, so this will be on October 7th. It'll return. The Halloween event will run every Saturday and Sunday and include trick-or-treating, family-friendly decorations, and treats. The beloved event has become a favorite for generations of Oklahomans. Beginning as a grassroots effort, Haunt the Zoo has grown to become the state's largest fall celebration, connecting thousands to the joy, excitement of the season and for the zoo. So I guess this is kind of like, locally we've got the Festival of Lights, but this must be their big, like everyone goes to the zoo at this time of year, right?
Yeah, it's 40 years. So that's a long time, which tells you that it's tradition. It's something that families look forward to every year, and it's had a great run.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. What's up next?
Sticking with zoos, the Baton Rouge Zoo in Louisiana is planning to build a new habitat for giraffes and other animals, such as large birds and Thompson's gazelles. It is hoped that the exhibit will enable guests to hand feed the giraffes while viewing the animals from the walkway. They're trying to make the exhibit as real life as possible. So when people visit, it's going to feel like you're in an African exhibit. Uh, I think the people of Baton Rouge, they deserve a nice zoo, and this is much needed refurbishment there.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I've been to the zoo, but I think it's really cool. And a lot of times when it comes, and I am in no way an expert whatsoever, so this is just my understanding. But when it comes to these upgrades, they actually modernize the way that the animals are treated and their ability to free roam and stuff like that. So I'm really glad that they're able to do that. This is all often publicly funded and stuff, so really cool.
What's next?
Okay, so the Alpine bobsled took its last glide down the half pike before being retired Monday at Great Escape, ending a 25-year run at the theme park. We were just talking about this. Spoiler alert, they're adding a coaster in its spot. The Six Flags
That's right.
Park announced last month that the 1,500-foot long trackless roller coasters ride would end on Labor Day. Members of the American Coaster Enthusiasts came to bid the ride farewell with a celebration and a private ride. So good for Ace for being able to do that. I love bobsled rides. I'm so sad that they're like not so much a thing anymore.
No, no, it's almost like an animal that's, when they're on the verge of being extinct, just not enough out there. So make sure that the parks that still have this attraction, you get out there, you ride it, because oftentimes, people vote with their feet.
I agree. I mean, yeah, it's definitely something to consider. Okay, so what's next, Don? It's my turn.
Cedar Point.
Oh,
Yeah, Cedar Point is preparing to unleash a new season of Halloween Screams as their annual HALLOWEEKENDS event returns for its 26th year on select dates from September 14th through October 29th. The biggest updates include two new haunted attractions, the Midnight Indoor Haunted Maze and Clown's Death Metal Tour, an outdoor scare zone. Now, Mr. Midnight invites you into his mysteriously evil residence, where you will be introduced to the Book of Dark and all the fears, terrors, and horrors living within its pages. Uh, Dare to be his guest and see what dark stories Mr. Midnight has written for you. So I like the way that one sounds. And then Death Metal Tour. This will be a scare zone. So as guests stroll down the Gemini Midway, they'll stumble upon the Butchers of Rock band. I like that name, the Butchers of
I
Rock
agree.
band, who found themselves performing an eternal concert night after night after night at HALLOWEEKENDS, with live music and clown-faced concert goers roaming the venue in this new outdoor scare zone. It's sure to provide sinister guitar licks, murderous metal music, and blood-curdling screams. Another one that sounds really good.
Yeah, Cedar Point's Halloween stuff is really cool, isn't it? I mean, they do a really good job.
It's
They don't get
very
enough credit.
underrated. Yeah, very underrated. Every time I've gone to it, I've had a great time, and uh, the scare actors are terrific. The decor looks great, so it's I highly recommend it.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving on, this is the last one. Worlds of Fun is ready for a hauntingly good time. The Kansas City Amusement Park announced new attractions that will be part of its Halloween haunt for the 2023 fall season. The new attractions include Pumpkin Eater, Dead Harvest Walkthrough Scare Zone, Ringmaster's Last Laugh, which is a live show, Zombie Buffet. Is that what they're trying to say? They're buffet.
Zombie
Booffee.
buffet,
Okay,
yes.
which is a dining experience. The Spectral Sisters, which is a daytime live show. And new options will join. I'm sorry. Yeah, the new options will join Mazes, scare zones, and live shows that were favorites from last year. So good for them for expanding the event. I think that's pretty cool. Don't you?
Yeah, Worlds of Fun is another park that has an underrated Halloween event. I know a lot of scare seekers, I'll call them that travel around and have done the different Halloween events at parks and different chains, and that they always speak very highly of Worlds of Fun's event, and have told me just how good it is and just how detailed the actors are with the makeup. And so yeah, I mean, it's another one that doesn't get enough attention. So if you're a scare enthusiast, make plans to visit Worlds of Fun, because I think that just based on what I heard, it'll be a scary good time.
Completely agree. It sounds really fun. Cool. Well, man, we made it through the pick six. How exciting. Um, Yeah. So make sure you follow us on all your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, Spotify. Follow us on Twitter/X at attractions_GRP and search for us on YouTube under the attraction, or sorry, search for the Attractions Group podcast on YouTube is what I'm trying to spit out. Awesome. Any final words of wisdom, Don?
Well, it's that time of the year with, like we talked about, new attractions have been announced, and now we're seeing the different, Halloween attractions being introduced for this year that you can do this fall, and just looking forward to that season kicking off and getting underway.
I agree. So just as a PSA, and we will tweet about this, but I will be out of town. I will be doing Disney Universal things next week, so we will not have a show next week. So don't worry about us. We're fine. But we plan to still drop some Tower Topics next week. So make sure you look for Tower Topics, which is our alternative podcast, which is just about Kings Island and does a couple podcasts a week. And we do the short form, which is 15 minutes or so, about individual like laser line subjects. So we'll see you next time, everybody.